When I first saw Ghost of Tsushima, I was instantly excited and assumed it was a game made by a Japanese studio. Just seeing the first trailer, I knew it was a game I'd been waiting for, a AAA game that puts you in the shoes of the ideal samurai. At the time, I didn't know much about the game, but I was already anticipating that I'd really enjoy it. As a Westerner that finds Asian culture fascinating. However, would it be done right? Would it be respectful? Would it be a buggy mess day one? Did they plan on going Dark Souls combat style? God, please no. What I did not expect was Ghost of Tsushima to become one of my top favorite games of all time, a game I'd go the extra mile to platinum, one that I'll likely go back to in a few years and feel full of nostalgia. Ah, yes, the game that gave me a moment's peace during the hellscape that was 2020. If only I could skip to those years now, because I'm already ready to play it again. Just a heads up, spoilers for the entire game coming up. The first thing I want to talk about with Ghost of Tsushima are the characters. My favorite aspect of the game are these characters and just how I love them all. Even the ones that are bad, I can't help but love them in some way. They all feel like real humans with lives, tragic stories, and hopes for the future. Like, you see them struggle, you see them move forward, and you see them progress with their life, whether it be in good ways or bad ways. I want to start off with my favorite character, which is Lady Masako. Let's get it out of the way. Yes, part of the reason I love her is because she is a bisexual grandma who can kick ass and take names. But she still has flaws. Though she's a samurai, she still feels anger and loses her temper. She lets revenge control her. After losing everyone and everything, she realizes there's nothing left to her. Lady Masako literally has nothing left to lose, including herself, because she's already lost her way of the samurai to the revenge that consumes her. Fighting alongside her, you feel her pain, anger, love, guilt, sadness, and failures. With everyone involved that she and Jin kill, you see Lady Masako lose a part of her who she once used to be, making her look back on her own life, making her rethink everything she has ever done to anyone, wondering if she did the right thing then or not. She shares stories about things she would do with her grandkids, and you hear the sorrow in her voice when she realizes she won't ever get to experience her grandkids' laughs again. At the end of her journey, she finds the sister she thought died during the attack on her family, but in fact was the one who killed her grandkids and daughter-in-laws. And then this is the first time we see Lady Masako hand the blade over and make the perpetrator end their own life. At the end of it all, she isn't sure what to do next. She's a broken woman that has got her revenge, but what does that path hold for her? That she does not know. Lady Masako is an amazing example of how not just female, but all characters should be written with realism. It makes them feel more authentic. If I have a second favorite character, it's hands down Yuna next to Jin. Another amazingly well written female character that is strong, resilient, doesn't give up, but knows her limits and when to ask for help from others. This is the moment where Jin's samurai resolve and the ideals of honor start to fracture. Yuna is the one that explains to Jin, if the samurai don't change their ways, then there's no hope for Tsushima. She is the one that saves Jin and the one that makes him give up his stubborn pride to put the people of Tsushima first, even at the cost of everything. This is the same thing that Yuna has had to go through in her life. She's had to give up everything to take care of her brother, including, as implied, her own body just to protect her little brother. By the end of the game, Yuna and Jin are on equal footing. They've both been able to protect all of Japan, but at the cost of everything they ever held dear to them. From my experience from playing many video games, Jin is one of the most amazing protagonists I've ever played as, and I love him to my very core. Still not as much as Lei Masako, but I love him. We start the story off with Jin ready to give his life for his people, preparing to die at Komata Beach with the rest of the samurai. However, At death's door, Yuna saves him, and when he's thrown off the bridge after fighting the Khan himself, Jin is lost about what to do. In these moments, he's brought back to when his father died, and the last day he saw his father, being surrounded by the villagers as he goes. Remembering how his people were there for him in one of his darkest times of his life, and the people that said if he ever needed it, they'll be there for him. On the walk, Yuriko is there by his side. When told the whole village is there, he asks, "Can't you send them away?" And she explains that he must face them since he is now the master of Clan Sakai. She says, "You aren't alone, Jin. Your father is the wind at your back, your mother is the bird in the trees." Rewatching these scenes and then going to him sitting on the beach after being thrown from the bridge, gripping his sword and asking his father how to save his uncle. The wind starts to blow in the direction of Yuna, the only one that can help Jin figure out how to beat the Mongols. It took me some time, but I now realize that the entire game you're being guided by Jin's father, the wind, and his mother, the yellow birds. These are normal game mechanics that are in all open world games, but they were tasteful with how they incorporated them. They are connected to Jin, his past, his family, and his future. But this moment, when he meets Yuna again, being guided by his father, is when Jin starts to question the samurai code of honor. Jin's story is about how pride can get people killed, and that not everything is black and white. Sometimes you have to do bad things to save lives, even if it means looking like the bad guy and losing everything. But I'll stop here with Jin, otherwise I'll go on for hours. Last individual character I want to talk about is Ryuzu. I have so many mixed feelings about him, but ultimately I love him. He's a very flawed character, one that wanted to be a samurai but lost to Jin during a tournament, and the loss he could never get past. Afterward, he joined the Straw Hats. During the events of the game, you see how the loss really damaged Jin and Ryuzu's friendship. However, he had the Straw Hats that accepted him, and eventually he became their leader to keep the only family he had left together. Early in the game, you help Ryuzu save his men and try to get them food, and you really want the best for them because they aren't bad people. However, due to the war, there was no food to be found, and ultimately the Straw Hats became so desperate that they betrayed Jin along with the people of Japan. Being a fellow human myself, I can't blame them for what they did and what Ryuzu did. You can tell he didn't want to betray them, but he felt that there was nothing left between him and Jin. In his eyes, Jin was the one who ruined his life, so he had nothing else to lose besides the Straw Hats. So he did what he could so his men could eat, and even if it meant losing his own life. It's a sad situation, and a realistic one at that. During all this, I didn't want to kill Ryuzu. Hard times will make people do anything to protect those they care about, and that's all he was doing. A notable thing that stuck out with me the rest of the game is you only see Jin really smile and laugh around Ryuzu, happy to see a friend, but his status before the war left him blind to the struggles that his friend was having, so focused on his own life, leaving his friend to feel like Jin didn't care about him anymore. Right before the last fight, Ryuzu realizes his men are gone, and you can tell how much regret he has for his own actions. While he's upset that Jin killed his men, he wants to work with him to finish off the Mongols, but at this point both men have lost everything, including their honor. Ryuzu knows that Jin is the only one he has left in this world, and hoped that maybe they could become friends again. But by then, it was too late. Ryuzu was broken, and Jin felt nothing but anger for the betrayal. But just to note, Jin misses and didn't want to kill Ryuzu. You can relax in a hot spring and he will reflect on how he misses his friend. I love their dynamic, but I wish there was a real resolution between the two. However, that wouldn't have been a realistic outcome. Next thing I want to talk about is the open world aspect of Ghost of Tsushima. The world of Tsushima really feels lived in. It's large but not overwhelming because areas are spread out, giving you time to just enjoy the landscapes as you ride around. Normally in open world games, I often don't see myself using the form of transportation they give you, even if some are my favorite games, like Horizon Zero Dawn. More often, I was running around with just Aloy, but, like in Days Gone, each area is just wide enough to encourage you to go using your horse. So, what else do I love about Ghost of Tsushima? Well, here are a few things. You get to name your horse, giving you an instant connection, but to add on to that connection and continue to build on it, Jin is often heard praising his horse, saying, You deserve the best, boy, or that's my Sora. And then you see him lying with his horse or petting it. I love seeing that Jin cared about animals, but specifically his horse. And when you lose your horse, and Jin has lost everything, he gets a horse that is just as beat up, damaged, and skinny looking. To me, this is a reflection of how he is feeling during this time. The combat feels smooth, and it gives you the feeling of being either a real samurai or someone who's learning to be a ninja. You feel like you're learning with Jin as you progress through the game. And then by the time you get to the end of the game, you get the ghost dance, and you are just amazing at everything in the game. Unless you're me and you still hate the bears. The climate in Ghost of Tsushima really felt familiar. It reminded me a lot of the Uncharted series, which is still to this day one of my favorites, hands down. Shrines look very unique to their own area, and each climb is very different from one another, making it fun to find shrines. And the all to go down after completing the shrine is a godsend. I love the fact that with listening mode, you can still move around with ease. It is very useful because there are times where you have to go through areas where you can't be detected and you can't assassinate at all. And so having it to where you can still move while still being able to see all the enemies in your area clearly is just one of the best parts of the game. The Gaiden win is very tastefully done, and it connects Jin not just to his past but his culture, but it's also very useful to keep track of where you're going and much easier to use than just a marker, which most open world games do. With markers, you often get lost. With the Gaiden wins, I found myself not getting lost really at all. It was much easier actually to get around with the Gaiden wins. So I hope in the future more companies take this form of tracking and use it in open world games. Thanks to all the prefectures, it's easy to find where you're going or where all the collectibles are, like bamboo cuts, shrines, and hot springs are located. It made platinuming the game much easier. There are a number of outfits, and upgrading them, they physically change, but you can always change their look back to the previous. Plus, every outfit has multiple colors. I'm a huge fan of dressing up my characters, whether it be just making the character or it just be changing a character's outfit. I love to physically see a character change as they progress through the story. Because normally, by the time you get to the end of the game, you look like a badass, and same thing goes with Jin. I've only recently found this out, but I found out that every main character, all their voice actors, are also the face models for the characters, and I thought that was such a cool thing that they did. And I love when games do this because that just means your favorite character, you can see that actor in other stuff like movies and other video games or TV shows. One of the last things I want to talk about that I really liked about Ghost of Tsushima is that it feels and plays like a real Japanese tale. It doesn't feel like they pushed Western norms into the story. Now, that's just coming from me, who is a Westerner myself. If they did, I did not notice. But ultimately, the game was really well done, and the story, I think, turned out really good too. So, real quick, I just want to talk about one of the sadder parts of the story, which is the end of the story. And it's the most heart-wrenching part of the story to me, and it really stuck with me. And that's not saying that this should not have been in the game. I personally think it was very tastefully done. And you could compare the sadness to what happened in The Last of Us, except you have a lot more time to prepare for what's about to happen, unlike in The Last of Us. So, to me, one of the saddest parts is seeing two clans die off due to the war and differences in how to handle it. By the end of the game, both the Sakai clan and the Shimura clan come to an end with Jin and his uncle. Knowing that Jin will lose his entire home to another samurai clan is heartbreaking after all they've gone through. And Jin was to be Lord Shimura's son, carrying on the legacy, but refused to in the end. There isn't anything that I can think of that I wanted to be in Ghost of Tsushima that I didn't get. But I am very glad that there were no underwater levels. There were very few things that I didn't like in the game, and honestly, I had to even reach regarding what I didn't like. One thing I didn't really like about the mechanics was that it's very difficult to stop running. Jin will just keep going and going and going, and I was getting a little aggravated, but it wasn't enough for me to like stop playing the game or anything. I didn't run into too many glitches that I can think of, and any of the ones I did run into weren't really game breaking, like they were just funny. I did run into one, I guess you could say, game breaking glitch, but it was easily fixed. It was a combat glitch where it would say you're still in combat, so you can't fast travel, and I easily fixed this just by getting on my horse and riding a short distance away, and the game would just, assume that the battle ended, and I was able to progress. I will say, however, one thing I hated greatly about this game were the damn bears. They were a nightmare, and they drove me actually insane. They they seem at first, the bears seem innocent. They seem like, oh, you can just easily dodge them, it's not a big deal. No, like you try to dodge them and then they like fake you out and smack you. It it's a whole thing, and I will have a link in the description to show how many times I got smacked up by a bear. So during my playthrough, I realized I wanted to make a game about Ghost of Tsushima. And I started thinking, well, is there anything factual in the game based off of what actually happened in Tsushima during the invasion? And so I started looking up and doing some digging to see what aspects of the game they took from actual history, historical events. So what I found was most major events in the game are based on real-life battles between Japanese and Mongol forces. The first battle in the game, where a small group of samurai are massacred by thousands of invading Mongols, is accurate and based on a real event. The Mongol invasion of Japan was a real event that occurred in 1274, and Tsushima Island was the Mongols' first target. Back in 2018, developers from Sucker Punch Production revealed how they wanted to keep some aspects of the game historically accurate. In fact, developers even invited two modern-day samurai to learn more about the history of the first Mongol invasion of Japan. However, in an interview with an entertainment portal, Sucker Punch co-founder Chris Zimmerman stated that they were going to deviate from historical truth to make the game more fun. Zimmerman added that the challenge for them was to make an original story that was set in real historical time. Ghost of Tsushima's main character never existed in real historical text. Jin Sakai and his uncle, Lord Shimura, are completely fictional characters. Moreover, the first Mongol invasion of Japan was not defeated by a single person like it was in the game. The real Mongolian army was actually devastated by Kyushu, Japan, by a deadly hurricane in 1274. Another historical liberty was the use of the iconic samurai sword, katanas. While most people believe that samurais only used swords, in reality, most samurai in the 13th century actually used a bow as their primary weapon. The katana only became prominent during the Edo period. These were a few facts that I thought were really important to mention, because there are plenty of people that will just take the game as completely fact or completely fictional, and I wanted to just add on the tail end that there are some aspects of the game that are accurate to what happened during those times, but they also take a lot from different parts of the history of Japan and incorporate them, like the katana. While this year might not have had a tremendous amount of games that came out, I found myself enjoying the quality of the games and spending more time in their world. Ghost of Tsushima will be my game of the year and will stay on my top 10 list for the foreseeable future. Maybe I will make a top 10 list. We will see. In every single inch of Ghost of Tsushima, you can feel the love and care that was crafted into the game. Normally, I don't really care if they remaster a game for the next gen consoles that just came out at the end of one life cycle. However, with Ghost of Tsushima, I wouldn't mind a remaster for the PS5 because I honestly would buy it again and replay it again, and it would just give me a reason to do all that. My final thoughts are that I think people who were disappointed in The Last of Us Part 2, which is one of the other very notable games that came out in 2020, who were disappointed in the fact that they just ran through death after death after death, not really giving you time to mourn or giving you time to really get to know these characters, you'll like Ghost of Tsushima, because even though a few people die, you get to know these characters, you get to love them and care about them and be angry with them. You get to feel for them. You have that time to do it. As to where with The Last of Us Part 2, I will admit, they did not give that. This is the first video that I've ever made where I actually finished the game first, wrote the script, edited the video, and put it all together to post it. And I'm glad it was Ghost of Tsushima because it is an amazing game. And I surprisingly don't see a lot of people talking about it. Maybe not too many people got it, which, based off of everything going on this year, understandable if games aren't your priority. If you did take the time to sit and watch my video, I just want to thank you. And honestly, I have no idea how to end a video, so